Good morning. Is China cutting off its nose to spite its face? Are they dropping out of the GPU game? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel for Techstrong and Techstrong Gang. Thanks for joining us on this lovely Wednesday, right in the middle of the week. We've got some great stuff to cover for you and some great people to cover it with. Let me go over it. Let me introduce you to our gang for today. First of all, he's back out on his perch overlooking Silicon Valley. He's the czar there after a short stint in Las Vegas for reInvent, where we got to actually see him in person. I felt blessed to be around royalty, our own John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you?
Hi, Alan. It was great to see you in Las Vegas. You, Mike, Mitch, the gang, assorted individuals, Daniel Newman. It was great. But it's better to be back here.
Yeah, well, from where you sit, you can see for miles and miles and miles, as the Who once said.
A little hazy today. I really can't see that.
It's a little hazy.
But I'll do my best.
And then we've got two people joining us from the great state of Texas. First of all, he is an analyst with Futurum Group and one of the co-founders of Visible Impact, our own Guy Gurrier. Hey, Guy, welcome. How are you?
Very good. It's good to be back. Well, actually, I didn't go. You went somewhere. It's
Yes,
good to
but
see
you
you
did
back.
something maybe even more important. You did your civic duty by reporting in for jury duty. And for those of you out there who try to skip it or get around it, it's one of the few things as a citizen that it's called on us to do in this country. And Guy, thanks for doing your duty. We salute you.
Well, thank you.
But it's good to have you back. And I'm glad you didn't get on a long trial that was going to have you out for weeks or months. Also joining us, though, from the beautiful city of San Angelo, Texas, right out of Abilene. It's our editor for Techstrong AI and Digital CXO and so much more, Amanda Razzani. One of these days we'll get it right, Amanda, but I always try. Amanda Razzani. Amanda, good to see you.
Yes, happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, and then last but not least, still licking his wounds over a major loss of personnel for his Yankees, our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike.
All right, I'm just counting all the budget dollars that the Yankees freed up, and maybe we'll just buy like 20 other players, see how it goes.
Well, I did the math. It's really not 20 other players, but I think they can get 3 to 4 top-line people in here for that. Right? Maybe one starting pitcher, a first baseman, and either a second or third baseman, and an outfielder.
All right.
I think that's what it's going to take.
And the price of Mets tickets are on the way up for sure.
Yeah, who cares? No one goes anyway. And we also need a bullpen. We need to do some bullpen additions there. Not necessarily, if this guy Weaver's going to be his closer, great, but we need some setup men for him.
All right. In other words, we just need a team and we're good to go. All right.
Well, we got all off season. I'm confident. Anyway, enough baseball. Let's turn to the matter at hand. Trade wars make for strange bedfellows. And in the latest salvo in the American Sino trade wars, you like the way I use that word, Sino, instead of China? I thought that was very sophisticated on my part. China is opening up, and you don't hear this from them that often, a formal antitrust probe of NVIDIA. So they're not banning NVIDIA right now, but they're, firing a broadside salvo that they're looking into potential antitrust probes of NVIDIA. What does this mean? What's the real deal behind it? I think we've got to go to the eye in Silicon Valley here and find out. John, this is one of your stories, isn't it?
Yeah. It's hard to keep track. There's a lot of moving parts in the U.S. Sino relationship. So China's issued this very bizarre press release. It was sparsely worded. It was very vague. It's the State Administration for Market Regulation, which I'd never heard of before. It said it is going to focus on NVIDIA for allegedly violating China's anti-monopoly laws. They're looking into the nearly $7 billion acquisition of Mellanox Technologies as a network and data transmission company. It's interesting. It's kind of almost a tit-for-tat timeline if you look at it. I think last week the U.S. imposed its third crackdown in 3 years on China's semiconductor industry. So they're expanding, curbing the exports to 140 companies that include chip makers. So China in turn has taken this action. This is significant, especially for NVIDIA, because it literally dominates the AI chip market with more than 90% market share. And it's going to have an impact. And this is going to be something that other companies in this region are going to be looking at, especially because, in a sense, NVIDIA is kind of caught in the middle between these two countries. And in effect, it's actually had an impact on the business. I believe 17% of NVIDIA's revenue through the last 12 months expected through January is down to 17% in China. It was 26% 2 years ago. So again, there are other things in motion that are happening between the U.S. and China. We have the upcoming tariffs from the Trump administration. We have this whole spying, stealing data from major telecoms. We've got the TikTok ban, which is headed towards January 19th showdown. It's just a lot to chew and mull over. And it's created a lot of tension, especially for the companies out here, and how the U.S. and China saber rattle one another.
This is getting hot and heavy quickly. They also put out a fleet of ships yesterday in an unannounced exercise that, or actually 2 days ago, that they just wanted to show that they could surround the island of Taiwan and cut it off. And, usually it's the kind of thing that they would, send a signal that we're going to go do, but this time they didn't. So this whole thing can get hot and heavy quickly.
Yeah. There's also China also banned the exports to the U.S. of these chip materials like gallium, germanium, etc.
The rare earths. Rare earths.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, we've been finding a lot of deposits right here in the U.S. of some of these rare earths, things like lithium and stuff like that will make us less dependent on China for these things. Though China's also trying to buy it up. Like Brazil has some rare earth resources that China has been trying to take control over. Mike, I want to just, because you know me, I'm a peacemaker. I just want to ratchet it down. I don't think the NVIDIA antitrust is necessarily related to the military actions around Taiwan. I think these are two very separate things as China views the world, in the Chinese view of the world. I think no doubt they're involved in a chip wars with the U.S. There's an argument to be made that we started this one, right? We threw the first stone. So there's this chip war going on, but that's separate and apart from their longstanding position that Taiwan is part of China. And sooner or later, John Willis has said 2027 is what numbers he's heard. At some point, something's going to happen there. And then depending who's president here and how we're going to deal with it, we're either going to, go to the mattresses over it or we won't. But for this particular thing, this is classic Chinese saber rattling. Does anyone know, does China even have anti-monopoly laws? Or is that just something they put in by fiat?
That's a really good point.
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of it either.
Me either.
It was in this organization that, there was another announcement among a bunch of associations where they said that U.S. chips are a threat or it's not safe to use them, so please only use locally
I know. Well,
produced
they
chips.
turn on
all these
space
trumped up.
lasers. But let's be realistic here, though, for a moment. Until there's a viable alternative to NVIDIA GPUs, do you really think China is going to stop importing and using NVIDIA GPUs for their AI uses and risk falling behind in the AI race? NFW, NFW. And I'll go one better. I guarantee you there are people rubbing their hands in glee in Singapore and Korea and all of the the tigers of East Asia who trade with China, because they're going to be buying up as much NVIDIA product as they can, because damn well China's not going to stop using NVIDIA. They may, for public purposes, slap them as a monopolist and say we're not going to import them directly, and the gray market will blow up with NVIDIA imports into China from places like Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia and, the Philippines is not so friendly because of China's military posture in the South China Sea. But, they're not going to stop using NVIDIA chips. They're not, and they'll pay for them. They may pay more.
I don't know, Alan. I appreciate ratcheting down the temperature for sure. But first of all, China does have extensive antitrust and anti-monopoly laws. I think what can confuse us is that they don't really apply to state-owned enterprises, and there's a lot of state ownership, majority ownership, or at least minority ownership and state interest in a lot of the private companies in China. But I think that, to my mind, this is a replay of the oil wars and battles of the late 19th century, for example, or early 20th century. It's just that the material now is not quite as fungible as they say. Oil is oil around the world, but chips may not be chips around the world. I do think that China's plan is to manufacture everything itself. They have the talent, the knowledge, the intelligence, the educational system, and the materials to do that. And they have the long view as well. And they showed this with aircraft, for example. They've shown this with the space industry. They've shown this with military. I think that they are going through severe economic difficulties right now related to, how they've run their economy and their own real estate bubble and things like that. And they have to deal with, like every nation, with making sure that people are happy enough, like domestic concerns, people are happy enough, prosperous enough, not to challenge the status quo. Every nation has to do that, even democratic ones. So I do think that this is a continuing escalation that's going to reach a peak at some point. It's not just the U.S. and Brazil. Australia has the same rare earths. It's just more expensive to get them. And, at some point that cost hits consumer pockets in the Western countries. It can, cause inflation or inflationary issues, like all the same classic stuff going back centuries.
China wasn't really in the oil wars, though, back then.
A couple of things
it was
here
the
that
opium wars.
Well, yeah, there was different actors in the oil wars, but it's the same phenomenon, or a similar phenomenon anyway. I don't want to overstate it.
I think there's a couple other factors at play here. One is we're finding those metals not just in Brazil, but in Wyoming, and Japan just found a huge
U.S. has some,
thing. So I think that will become less of an issue. I also think we're going to be less dependent upon GPUs to train AI models as the next generation of AI processors come around, and where they're going to be made will be the issue. And then we're seeing TMSC, I think that's what their
TSMC,
is going by, but they're saying they're now licensing their manufacturing technology so we can make those GPUs someplace else. Because the one issue we have is that all that stuff leads back to to Taiwan currently. But let's be clear. There's no way in God's green earth that the United States is going to put boots on the ground to protect Taiwan. And the Chinese know this. And we have signaled this left, right, and center around the world. And you bet that they're going to push hard in the next couple of years, because they're going to be like, you know what, guys? You may think that the island of Taiwan and GPUs are not connected, but in their mind, they're very connected.
I'm not so sure that we don't. Sorry.
The moving of manufacturing onshore by TSMC, onshore, meaning onshore U.S. I think Arizona.
I think it's going to be in the U.S. Yeah.
The CHIPS Act in general, it's interesting how the pandemic showed us how dependent we are on choke points in world supply, including of chips. And so I agree with you, Mike. I think that the U.S. or at least, under the latest administration, is doing everything it can to loosen its strategic dependency on choke points everywhere, including Taiwan, such that if and when the day comes that China absorbs peacefully or otherwise, potentially Taiwan, just like it did Hong Kong, that it has as little impact on Western economies as possible at that point.
Guys, I think you're operating on old information. Let me bring you up to date. First of all, the chips factory in Arizona by Taiwan Manufacturing has not progressed very much at all, and it's kind of wallowing. It's not even close to being ready.
But Alan, there was a report. I think there was a report. I'm not sure how valid it is that NVIDIA and TSMC might try to
Might.
we
There
knew
was a
that.
report they
Might.
might. They call that a rumor, right? There's also a rumor that the Trump administration will do away with the CHIPS Act. And then where are you? Nowhere. There's also a story, not a rumor, that TSMC has said they are not going to export or license their latest 2 nanometer technology anywhere outside of Taiwan. And I'll tell you why they're doing it, because they're not stupid people. In order to get the U.S. and the West to protect them against China, the U.S. isn't going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. They're going to do it because there's some strategic asset there. And if that strategic asset is the technology and know-how for the latest generation of chips, GPU or otherwise, that makes Taiwan strategic. And if
or it just makes it really important to get that technology out of harm's way.
if you're TPMC, which is Taiwan, don't you think they realize that if they keep that there, it's like it's an insurance policy?
Or we may just say, you know what, we're going to move off GPUs and say we won't be dependent upon that, and we'll use other processors. So there's other ways to go. We've seen AWS is out touting its processors that have nothing to do with GPUs for training AI models. I don't know if they work better or worse than GPUs, but there's a lot of folks who are saying, you know what, GPUs are expensive and hard to come by in the first place, so maybe we don't need them.
What are
So
some
the-
of the
the-
most viable companies that could step up? I mean, it seems NVIDIA really has the market, but what are some of the other most viable?
Well, a lot of people are designing their own GPUs, including Amazon is
And
betting both
Google.
sides of this thing. They're going to bet on their own GPUs and this Titanium thing as an alternative. Google and Microsoft have similar playbooks. So, all those cloud service people went out and said, we're not going to be dependent upon external suppliers because of this very issue. So I think,
The problem is, though, and frankly, it's the same problem China faces in making their own domestic market for these things. There's going to be a window where you don't have it. And in something that is deemed as strategically vital as AI progress, who could afford to go through that desert before you reach the oasis, right? Who can afford to make it through that window? And that's the issue. That's the issue.
I think we're inadvertently combining a design, process, and fab, though. TSMC is the world leader in process and fab. And they certainly cooperate and work with NVIDIA. They work with AMD. I'm pretty sure they work with Amazon on design. But the design is portable around the world. Process is actually not just Taiwan, but I think the Netherlands, if I remember right, is the world's leading manufacturer of fab equipment. And then there's the fabs and the fabrication, the fabs themselves. That is really the choke point right now, more than anything else. I think, and the push to build fabs, on U.S. soil in Europe and everything just takes a long time, full of potential problems, and that's why it remains a choke point. So maybe less of a problem and less of an issue around NVIDIA specifically, if there is enough fab supply, which categorically there's not right now. So
we shall see. I mean, this is global trade in the 21st century, and we'll see how that plays out. let's take a break here on Techstrong, gang. Let's come back, something more domestically focused, looking at AI in healthcare. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
All right, folks, we're back. And I guess, if you've been under a rock, you may not be aware, but there have been some tragic events in New York City involving the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And none of that is excusable, but it has led to this conversation about what is the proper usage of AI in healthcare and in claims, because there are folks who are concerned that issues are being not properly investigated because the AI is essentially just denying everything. And this is creating a lot of angst in the world. Social media is full of this stuff, and people are starting to complain about healthcare vociferously. Everybody's been complaining about it for a while. But John, I know you looked into this and wrote a story about what's going on with healthcare. So what's your assessment of their usage of it? Because, one thing that comes to mind is lack of visibility.
Right. So, the only thing we really knew about United Healthcare and AI was there was a lawsuit that was filed about a year ago, November 2023, that pointed out, it was a class action suit out of Minnesota. A couple of customers, patients, families found that there was a system in place that the murdered CEO had approved of that automatically denied claims basically from sick elderly customers. And in a sense, I started calling around the healthcare professionals, the folks I could find, and they were telling me that what UHC did was not unique. It's actually quite common, the use of AI to escalate denied claims. And it's kind of sparked this debate on the ethical use of AI. And one of the things that someone told me that was really interesting was that there's a phrase or a syndrome that they're talking about in the healthcare industry about the use of AI called the slow motion Hal effect. Now, I know you all probably are familiar and know extremely well the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a scene in the movie where Hal, the evil computer, methodically turns off the life support systems of the hibernating astronauts, in which they are killed. This is what people at hospitals and doctors are saying about the insurers. That we're kind of in this lightning rod issue of intersection of AI and healthcare transformation, where it's leading to a lot of bad results. And this, in a sense, in a weird way, this murder has kind of opened up this whole debate on the healthcare system. And even if you want to go deeper into class warfare, but I found it very interesting. And when I talked to the healthcare professionals, they said everyone's doing this now. They're using they're using AI in a sense to deepen their profits and nullify or discourage claims. So I just found this whole thing really fascinating, and it opens up a whole can of worms about not just our healthcare system and how it compares to the rest of the world, but also with struggles in class warfare.
So
I would like to point out one thing about this, though, right? We're conflating a workflow and a process and a strategy with AI. And that strategy existed before AI came along. AI may have amplified it, but
It did, yeah.
the process didn't existed before AI came along. So, we're kind of like pointing a finger at AI, but I'm kind of looking at all this.
AI the bad
No,
I'm
but
not
it's
saying that. I mean, it was a flawed system to begin with. It's been a source of frustration. AI, in a sense, is just kind of turbocharged the percentage of denial of claims. I think with UHC, it's cited in somewhere in the lawsuit, it went from like 11% to 22% in certain instances. And if so very few people fight back and appeal the claims, they'll pay out of pocket or just give up altogether on care. Sorry, Amanda.
So I got a few things here, John, with what you said. I've got some issues. Number one, the HAL 9000 computer was not evil. I don't even know if a computer can be evil. But as we saw in 2010, this follow-up film, There was some
Oh, that was a
problems with some
terrible movie.
circuits and programming, but it wasn't evil, right? HAL 9000 was a great computer. Dr. Chandra kind of restored it, right? So, but it's a microcosm for this. Let's not blame the computer for the evil of men, right? This was a corporate policy right out of a John Grisham
Right.
novel to deny cases, to deny claims. And until people fight back, and it goes to the whole for-profit health industry, health insurance industry, because they certainly don't give a crap about your health. They care about their profits. Now, that being said, I'll be honest with you, it made my stomach turn watching my Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm a boomer. Watching my Facebook feed of people applauding the death of a man, showing on Elon Musk's X the video footage of this guy getting killed is not something I think is appropriate. Right? That video should not be being shown on there. The hell with freedom of speech. It's wrong. And anyone who applauds the death of someone like that getting shot in the back deserves no better themselves. It's wrong. I was chagrined when they came out last night. I'm using some big words today, huh? I was chagrined when the news came out last night that the person they brought into custody is not who you think it would be. This is an Ivy League UPenn educated data engineer, a techie nonetheless. Since when did techies shoot people? We're pacifists. We're good people. We don't shoot people. I don't care what the guy did.
He was also from a wealthy family, right?
Yeah,
And he went
I
to
mean,
this
this
very
did
highly
not
regarded
fit.
private school. I mean, it's just everything.
So it came
that
out
he wouldn't.
overnight that, or at least yesterday, that he was also somewhat estranged from his friends and family because they hadn't heard from him for a while. Apparently, he's been suffering some issues with back pain for a long time, and he was exhibiting a lot of the symptoms of somebody who, might do this.
Well,
even
he
though they
was a
come
big
from.
fan of the Unabomber,
Oh,
whatever,
yeah, that.
Ted Kaczynski.
Yes, he posted on Goodreads his
Yes.
thoughts about the manifesto.
Yeah.
He read through it thoroughly.
But nevertheless, I'm not saying the CEO of United is a saint, nor is he the devil. He certainly doesn't deserve to get shot down dead in the streets of Manhattan in the back like that. That's just, and anyone who condones that and makes this guy into some kind of folk hero, you're twisted. That's twisted and it has no place.
And especially one man, the CEO, I think people don't realize one man doesn't control everything at the company. I mean, he had just come into the company recently.
No, he's been at United a long time. He's been CEO just 3 or 4 years, but he's 17
That's what I
years
meant.
or something there. I'd hate to think someone wants to shoot me for something our editorial department did. But that being said, let's.
Long silence there for a second.
Yeah, well, there we were
That was
mulling.
a little
We were
pregnant
thinking
pause
through
I
some
put in
examples.
there in
Yeah.
case you didn't realize it. But let's come back. Let's come back to focus on AI in healthcare, right? I put forth the proposition that this isn't AI in healthcare. This is AI in health insurance. AI in healthcare is going to do great things to make us healthier and help us with our health.
That's an excellent point. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I
my
talked to
mother
a
was
couple
a
of people.
surgeon. Yeah, my mother was a surgeon in New York City. She was trained as a trauma surgeon. She worked in emergency rooms, and as a women's health surgeon, and at a very prestigious hospital system in New York City. And right around the early 90s or something like that, she was called in by her new department chair, a surgeon, and for a meeting with his new controller, the finance person, who had her new compensation plan, which involved something like, here's 1/4 of your base salary, and here's how much money we expect you to bring into the hospital, and here's your share of that money to balance it out. This was someone who didn't go to business school, someone who went to medical school, someone who did not get into medicine for the interest of making money, which a lot of folks did at that time, still do. but because she wanted to provide healthcare to people who needed it. And the immediate result was a loss of her personal revenue, and a 10 year period where she was kind of in the wilderness as far as her professional development goes. And so, Alan, I think that the issue is actually endemic throughout healthcare. It's not just on the payer side; it's on the provider side too. I completely agree that AI has the opportunity to improve outcomes and under human trained supervision. But I wonder at if the other influences of AI, because of a healthcare system that's profit oriented, not public benefit oriented, if those are going to overwhelm
I
the
I
the
I I think
benefits.
this is the beginning of something that we're going to see over and over again. What's going to be is that there's all these flaws in all these systems inside and outside of healthcare, and they exist everywhere, and they're all going to get exacerbated by AI. And and we'll blame AI, but ultimately the flaw already exists, and we're going to see this over and over again. It's going to be this societal impact of AI, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, I think. We're
Right.
going to see all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. That's what I got from these healthcare professionals. They mentioned all the good things that AI can do in the field, but I got to thinking, Mike, also about this idea of how it applies to other industries, and we'll have the same different types of scenarios where the best parts of AI will be used, but there will also be the downside and pitfalls, which will probably get more attention, honestly, because that's the way the press
Right.
works.
As
So
Alan said, AI is only doing what it was trained to do.
Right. And if the issue before AI arrived was only impacting, 5% of the people over an extended period of time, it will go unnoticed. But once you get up into the realm of 20, 25%, then everybody starts talking about it and it becomes, a political issue. So we'll see what
But
happens.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not that it becomes a political issue per se, but that at least people start noticing it because, look, there are too many people in the U.S. who say, it's okay, we still have the best healthcare in the world. And those people haven't traveled very much. We need a redo around healthcare here. Guy, what you pointed out with your mom is from the 90s, but unfortunately, I don't think it's very different today. Right?
No, it's worse. If
Yeah.
anything, it's
I
become
I have
systematized.
friends down here in Boca who are doctors and whether they're working for the big hospitals or the big healthcare, healthcare has gone big. There's no kind of local hospital. The local hospital is part of this system. And the doctors all work for the system, and it's all part of the system. And the system is profit driven. And so it's gotten worse. You're right. We need to figure out something in this country.
Yeah, I feel like this is a canary in the coal mine. What does this teach us about the use of AI just generally as a public benefit versus as a profit motive? I mean, I asked the group here, like, what should our audience, think? Should they be behaving differently? Should they wish for better systems? Like, do we need to just learn? Like, we talk a lot about reminding ourselves what AI is good for and what it's bad for and how to manage it and how to use it productively. But is this a cultural question? I don't even know.
I don't either. I mean, but wishing for better isn't going to, we've got to work to make it better. And if that means lobbying, voting with your pocketbook and at the ballot and everything else, it's a bad, I mean, I'll be honest, as the CEO of a company here at Techstrong, I've always made it my business to make sure that we have what I consider great healthcare options in terms of insurance and affordability and coverage so that you can go to a doctor anywhere and get treated, that you can go into just about any facility and get treated. And we've had people who've come here to Techstrong and said, hey, I appreciate that. I've had young people who say, I never get sick. I don't need the health insurance. And God bless them if that's what they want to do. But it's important. And I just, I'm at a loss, honestly. I get very disappointed that as a country, we haven't figured it out. And we keep talking about repealing Obamacare. Like Obamacare was the be all and end all. It wasn't bad. It improved a bad system, but it didn't. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done in our healthcare system.
This has
It's
been a debate that's been going on for 70, 80
So,
years, back to the Truman administration.
yeah. I-
so,
it's-
so,
And before that.
so Alan, let me ask you this just for grins, right? What percentage of your costs are tied up in healthcare, and why are companies on the hook for this, for the insurance, when if we had a different system, that would all move into more of a government function, right?
Oh, I want to answer the second question. Go ahead, Alan. First.
No, you go
The second
first,
question
Guy.
is
Go
really
ahead.
interesting. So the reason why private companies or not private, like the government is not involved directly in healthcare is because during World War II, there were controls put on during the war effort as to how much people could be paid in order to try and keep government costs down because of all the profiteering that's going on. And so companies started to offer non-monetary benefits instead of salary in order to attract workers, which were scarce. And one of those was healthcare.
Yeah. And there you go. I mean, I will tell you, Mike, it depends on what people make, right? Because if people aren't highly compensated, the percentage of their salary that it costs us as a company to give them health insurance is higher than someone who makes more money. But if you take the average person here at Techstrong, and again, I think we pay a decent wage. If you take the average person here at Techstrong, and we, I'm not going to advertise our benefits on the gang, but we pay a good, healthy percentage of your insurance, whether you're a person, a couple, or a family. We pay a very healthy percentage of that. It winds up costing 18% over and above just your healthcare. I'm not talking 401k and matching and all that stuff. Healthcare is 20% of an average person's salary additional in terms of a benefit. So that means if someone makes, let's say, $100,000 a year, to make it real simple, it winds up costing me 120.
Mm-hmm. All of which could theoretically, if you add up all the employees, maybe we're not hiring additional folks because of the total cost of healthcare, right?
Well, and you know what? I'm glad you brought it up, because as a CEO, that's something I wrestle with every day. But I'd rather have less people who don't have to worry that, God forbid, they or their children got sick or their spouse got sick and they don't have coverage, or they're going to go for an operation and some insurance company is going to tell them, I can only give you anesthesia for 30 minutes. I don't care if your operation's 40 minutes. What kind of nonsense is that?
I, for one, am very grateful for our insurance benefits.
Yeah, no, I mean, I am too. I think we have, and I'll be transparent. Our insurance is United. I've never had.
It is UnitedHealthcare.
Yeah,
yes.
and we've never had the issues that you read about, but
Nope.
I don't know. I don't know. But I do believe healthcare rights are human rights, and everyone's entitled to healthcare, or should be. Anyway, on that note, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back, something a little lighter. Snowplow alert. Amanda has the news on it. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
All right. Alan referred to this as something lighter. I've never heard of a light snowplow, but we're talking about how in New York State they are testing technology so that as a driver, you can know where that snowplow is and hopefully maybe not run into it, or as most New Yorkers would probably do, just follow it because, well, it's, cleaning up the highway. And it's just kind of like what New Yorkers do sometimes when they are following ambulances and fire trucks, right? Not necessarily the right smartest thing to do, but that's kind of how it gets rolled up. Amanda, this was on Digital CXO. So, what's your take on this? And are we going to see more of this?
Yes, I love this. And I think where I see this being really beneficial is, I live in Texas. So I do think we're going to see more of this because if you think a couple of years ago, and you would remember this, we had the Snowmageddon, and we don't have the infrastructure or the equipment to really handle a lot of these hazardous conditions. So I see this eventually being really helpful in these areas as far as safety on the road. It would have been helpful back then. Everybody was just kind of stuck at home. But yeah, and in the big cities too, with the traffic, with the traffic situations there, I think it's great because it's going to reduce a lot of accidents. And I will kick it off to John to share more about it because he's the one who wrote the article.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. So the company is called Icon Products. I talked to the CTO, interesting guy who kind of downplayed in a weird way what they were doing, but this goes far beyond New York. They have systems in dozens of states, and they're actually in the process of talking to Tesla, General Motors, and Ford about using their technology, somehow incorporating it into their cars so it's on board. And you think about it, it's not just snowplows, it's any type of construction equipment on the shoulder of a road, the construction workers themselves who are endangered. And what this guy and what they're trying to do is, I think, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but in a sense, it's kind of a safety advancement for drivers. I think of seatbelts, airbags, Ralph Nader, anti-lock brakes, rear view video systems. And I think of this now with the technology. It's available on Google and Waze. And in fact, I've experienced it because in a roundabout way because I just upgraded my iPhone to the latest system. And now it's giving me alerts approximately about cars on the side of the road or some sort of accidents before I get there so I can avoid it or at least I know about it. So I was quite interested in this. There actually also have been studies done. I think Purdue does a lot of studies on emergency braking near work zones and found that technology like this has resulted in a reduction in emergency braking near these types of sites. So again, technology can do a lot of really good things. And I think it's important to write about these types of things and not always dwell on the dark side of tech, as some of us, especially me, do.
I thought
Well,
Waze
dark side of tech. I
Go
mean,
ahead, Guy.
shout out to Texas, the only state I've been in where people actually drive faster when there's ice on the road instead of slower.
They don't know
I think,
how to drive.
Jesus. I think that as someone who very recently, like a good New Yorker in Texas, drove behind police car that was clearing the way for me. I think that John has the essential point here, which is first of all, increasing awareness generally and information without fuss. I'm a Google Maps user, but they've started to incorporate that kind of Google Waze information about what's going on the road. This is, one of the non-drug related leading sources of accidents is inattentive drivers who don't see things like blockages or weather conditions or what have you, and get caught by surprise. And I learned a new term, Internet of Roadwork. Is it that this Spencer talks about? Yeah. The more information, the more data we get in, that's an opportunity for the app developers. It's an opportunity for the AI developers. And I'm not going to turn dark on this at all. These are opportunities that we just want to be cautious and smart about using them, because ultimately this data, right, Amanda, this is going to be incorporated into, automated driving and other kinds of driver assist, whether on vehicle or in app, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be so helpful, like I said, in reducing accidents and allowing people, especially in places like Texas that just aren't comfortable or familiar with driving in hazardous conditions, to feel safer.
So,
in California, we freak out when it drizzles, right? And so we also, the thing that I was thinking about more and more is with the Infrastructure Act, there was so much construction going on. We have portions of Highway 101, which is a major artery here, that are closed or divert traffic every weekend because they're still working on these projects, repaving the roads. And there's so much equipment out there. I really want to know before I get on the road what's there. So I'm not only delayed, but I also feel unsafe sometimes because there are quite a few lanes that are abruptly shut off.
I will tell you what a lot of small towns do not appreciate about this Waze thing and all this other stuff. And I'll give 95 as an example. Every time there's a friggin' slowdown on 95, everybody stops hopping off and goes on Route 1 through all these small towns. And it's only about 10 minutes later before that entire small town comes to
But some
gridlock.
people stop there and grab a bite to eat or gas up, and they make and I don't mean to make light of it. Let me tell you why. Because I'm not an unreasonable man. So the deal is
Okay,
this. First
Don.
of all, I
Carleo.
think you got that too, Guy. This kind of functionality has been available in Waze for many years. I've used Waze for years and years, especially when there's hurricanes down here. Waze gives you the best way around. It tells you what's bad and what's not. The issue is it can't be a do-gooder thing. There's got to be a profit motive. Otherwise, it's not going to make it, right? Waze, God bless, was a bunch of Israeli guys. Google paid $1 billion for technology that brought in $0 in revenue. And they've been trying to figure out how to do revenue ever since. Now they've got it where, McDonald's will show up on your Waze. Hey, where's the nearest McDonald's? Where's the nearest Kentucky Fried Chicken? Or KFC? Where's the nearest whatever? And so they're trying to put advertising on your Waze maps and your Google Maps to make it somewhat, revenue neutral, if not downright profitable. If you can't figure out a way to make this make money, the do-good aspect is only going to take you so far. And I think that is the problem with all of these. I mean, it's great technology. It's life-saving technology. But if it doesn't have a path to profitability as Alphabet gets squeezed.
The CTO of Icon actually told me he was frustrated because dealing with the automakers because he said they were more preoccupied with the EVs, and that's where their budget and most of their money went.
Because show me the money. Show me the money.
Right. So exactly to your point. And he said now they're beginning to see that if people pay a premium for cars in particular, they want everything imaginable that can make it a safe experience. But yes, he said that the profit motive wasn't there yet for them to put it on board.
But I won't be able to go to McDonald's anymore because the AI is tracking the fact that I ate all that crappy food, and then I won't get coverage when I get that disease. So what's the point?
There is that.
It all comes back.
Hey,
it all comes back.
Be careful what you wish for. Anyway, guys, we got to pull the plug on this edition of The Gang. We've all got places to go. What a great bunch of conversations today. I hope you've all enjoyed it at home. Reminder, as always, we have a full day of Techstrong TV immediately following, so stay right here at your favorite BAT channel, BAT Time, and check out what else we've got. Guy, Amanda, Mike, and John, thank you very much for joining us here on The Gang today. This is Alan Schimmel. We're out.